Kikao kilichosubiriwa kwa hamu cha kamati ya ujasusi ya Seneti ya Marekani kuhusu vitisho vya usalama wa dunia kiligeuka kuwa cha moto Jumanne hii baada ya wabunge kuwauliza maswali mazito maafisa wa serikali ya Trump kufuatia uvujaji wa taarifa nyeti uliopewa jina la Signal Gate. Kashfa hiyo ilihusisha grupu la mawasiliano kwenye programu ya Signal ambalo kwa bahati mbaya lilimhusisha Jeffrey Goldberg, mhariri mkuu wa The Atlantic, na kufichua mijadala ya siri kuhusu mpango wa shambulio la kijeshi dhidi ya Wahuthi nchini Yemen. Kashfa hiyo ilifumuka baada ya Goldberg kufichua kuwa aliunganishwa kimakosa kwenye grupu hilo na mshauri wa usalama wa kitaifa Mike Waltz, ingawa Rais Donald Trump na ikulu White House walidai kosa hilo lilifanywa na mfanyakazi wa ofisi. Wakati wa kikao, Senator Mark Warner wa chama cha Democratic alikemea tukio hilo kama sehemu ya mwelekeo wa uzembe unaojirudia. Kashfa ya Signal sio tukio la bahati mbaya, alisema Warner. Ni uzembe, kutojali na utepetevu, na hali hii inajirudia mara kwa mara. Matendo haya yanaiweka Marekani katika hatari kubwa zaidi. Aliongeza kuwa Marekani inakabiliwa na mwanya mkubwa wa kuaminika, hali inayoharibu imani ya washirika, wafuasi na umma kwa ujumla. Senator Tom Cotton wa Republican, ambaye aliongoza kikao hicho, aliepuka kulizungumzia moja kwa moja swala hilo, lakini alimpongeza Goldberg kwa kutokuchapisha maelezo nyeti kabisa. Kikao hicho pia kilishuhudia ushahidi kutoka kwa mkurugenzi wa ujasusi wa nchi hiyo Tulsi Gabbard, mkurugenzi wa FBI Kash Patel na mkurugenzi wa CIA John Ratcliffe. Wabunge waliwataka kueleza ni vipi mwandishi aliweza kupata ufikiaji wa mawasiliano hayo ya siri. Gabbard na Ratcliffe walikanusha kuwa taarifa za siri zilizungumziwa kwenye mazungumzo hayo. Gabbard alikwepa maswali kuhusu maelezo ya kijeshi, akimwelekeza waziri wa ulinzi Pete Hegseth, huku Ratcliffe akikiri kushiriki, lakini akasisitiza kuwa mchango wake ulikuwa halali kabisa. Patel hata hivyo alikataa kusema kama FBI itaanzisha uchunguzi kuhusu uvujaji huo wa taarifa za usalama wa taifa. Wabunge wa Democratic walikosoa vikali kashfa hiyo. Senator Mark Kelly, aliyewahi kuwa rubani wa jeshi la wanamaji, aliliita tukio hilo jambo la kijinga zaidi nililowahi kuona kuhusu usimamizi wa taarifa za siri na kutaka uchunguzi ufanyike. Kiongozi wa wachache wa Senate Chuck Schumer alisisitiza pia haja ya uchunguzi wa pamoja wa vyama vyote. Kwa upande wa Republican, kiongozi wa wengi wa Senate John Thune alikiri makosa ya kiutendaji, lakini kukosoa moja kwa moja sifa za utawala wa Trump, huku spika wa bunge Mike Johnson akitetea ikulu akisema hakuna mtu anayepaswa kupoteza kazi kwa kosa hilo. Senator huru Angus King alipinga madai ya Gabbard kuwa mazungumzo hayo hayakuwa na taarifa za siri, akisisitiza kuwa maelezo kuhusu wakati wa mashambulio na silaha yanapaswa kuchukuliwa kwa nyeti. Gabbard alisisitiza msimamo wake wa kumwelekeza waziri wa ulinzi, jambo lililomfanya King kuitaka serikali kutoa nakala kamili ya mazungumzo hayo ili wananchi waweze kujua kilichojiri. Huku uchunguzi ukisubiriwa na mivutano ya kisiasa ikiongezeka, kashfa ya Signal Gate imeibua maswali mazito kuhusu uwezo, uwajibikaji na usalama wa taarifa nyeti za taifa la Marekani.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to take your extra 13 seconds, but I want to go back to what I addressed at the outset. I mean, this was not only sloppy, it not only violated all procedures, but if this information had gotten out, American lives could have been lost. The Houthis had this information and could reposition their defensive systems. So I want to get a little more information about this. Director Gabbard, did you participate in the group chat with Secretary of Defense and other Trump senior officials discussing the Yemen war plans?
Senator, I don't want to get into the specifics.
Ma'am, were you on? You're not going to be willing to address. So you're not, are you denying? Ma'am, will you answer my question, ma'am? You were not TG on this group chat?
I'm not going to get into the specifics.
So you refuse to acknowledge whether you were on this group chat?
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Why are you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's all classified?
Because this is currently under review by the National Security
Council. Because it's all classified? If it's not classified, share the text now.
As the White House previously
stated, is it classified or non-classified information on this text?
I can confirm.
Director Radcliffe, were you on the group chat?
Senator, I was on a signal messaging group.
So you were the John Ratcliffe on that chat?
I was.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I provide some context, Senator, to that?
Yes, but I've got a series of questions.
Well, but I think it's important because at the outset you made a couple of comments about signal messaging using encrypted apps. So that we're clear, one of the first things that happened when I was confirmed as CIA director was signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA, as it is for most CIA officers. One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA records management folks about the use of signal as a permissible work use. It is. That is a practice that preceded the current administration to the Biden administration.
Director Ratcliffe, I've got a series of questions. If you're making the statement, the signal is a secure channel.
No, can I answer that? It is
I've got a series
end-to-end decryption. So to finish,
I understand encryption.
It is permissible to use to communicate and coordinate for work purposes, provided, Senator, that any decisions that are made are also recorded through formal channels. Right. So those were procedures that were implemented. My staff implemented those processes, followed those processes, complied with those processes, and finally, just please. So my communications, to be clear, in a signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information.
Well, we will make that determination, because if it's not classified, share the text with the committee. Let me go on. Director Gabbard, you are the security executive and set access guidelines for classified information. Did you contact the Defense Secretary or others after this specific military planning was put out and say, hey, we should be doing this in a SCIF?
There was no classified material that was shared in that
So then if there was no classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways. These are important jobs. This is our national security. Bobbing and weaving and trying to, filibuster your answer. So please answer the question. If this was Director Gabbard, if this was a rank and file intelligence officer who did this kind of careless behavior, what would you do with them?
Senator, I'll reiterate that there was no classified material that was shared in that signal.
And if there's no classified materials, share. And then if there's no classified materials, then you can't even answer the question whether you're on the chat. This is strangely familiar, and I think my colleagues will remember, when you couldn't answer the question, is Edward Snowden a traitor? Man, I have serious doubts about anyway. Director Gabbard, I'm going to give you this. Tweeted just 11 days ago, and I'm quoting you, any unauthorized release of classified information is a violation of the law and will be treated as such. So if this information is classified, what are you going to do?
Senator, 2 points here. First of all, there's a difference between inadvertent release versus
careless and sloppy,
malicious leaks of classified information. The second point is there was no classified information that was on the
information committee should get that information. Director Patel, my time's about out, and I'm going to use my 12 seconds up the chairman came. Director Patel, has the FBI launched any investigation of this?
Senator, I was just briefed about it late last night, this morning. I don't have an update.
I would like to get an answer by the end of the day.
I'm going to come back to the topic of the day here, the signal chain as reported by the Atlantic. Ms. Gabbard and Mr. Ratcliffe, you each testified that there was no information operational in nature, no classified information. So I want to ask each of you just a series of, just respond yes or no. I'll start with Ms. Gabbard. In the signal chain that we have been talking about, was there any mention of a target in Yemen?
I don't remember mention of specific targets.
Any generic target?
I believe there was discussion around targets in general.
Mr. Ratcliffe.
I think that's consistent. with my recollection. Again, I don't have access to that.
Was there any mention, Ms. Gabbard, of a weapon or weapons system?
I don't recall specific weapons systems being named.
I'm not talking about specific, any weapon or weapons system.
I don't recall specific names of systems or weapons being used or named within the
Well, I'm not asking whether, I don't want you to tell me what the specific weapon was, but any weapon at all. Mr. Ratcliffe, same question.
I don't recall.
How about anything about timing? Ms. Gabbard.
I don't recall specific timing.
Was there any mention?
I won't get into the detail of the conversation, but obviously there was a significant amount of planning and internal discussions that had occurred prior to and outside of this Signal chat.
Mr. Ratcliffe, you're nodding your head. Any mention of any military unit whatsoever? Mr. Ratcliffe.
Not that I recall.
Ms. Gabbard.
Not that I recall.
Okay. So I understand that DoD policy prohibits discussion of even what is called controlled unclassified information, or CUI, on unsecured devices. Are both of you aware of that DoD policy?
I haven't read that policy.
Not familiar with the DoD policy, but I would say that the Secretary of Defense is the original classification authority for DoD in deciding what would be classified information.
Ms. Gabbard, does the intelligence community have a policy that prohibits discussion of controlled unclassified information?
Yes.
It does. Okay. Controlled unclassified information, according to DoD, includes information that is information that has not been approved for public release. Would you, of what's been disclosed publicly of the signal chain, would either of you feel that that would be approved for public release? Ms. Gabbard.
The discussion that took place in that Signal chat group was a conversation reflecting national security leaders and the vice president around the president's objectives.
So yes or no, would you approve that for public release?
I don't feel I can answer that question here.
Because of the nature of this hearing?
Because of the nature of a private discussion that took place between individual leaders in our government.
It would make sense that you would not approve it for public release, wouldn't it?
There are other factors that would go into that consideration.
Mr. Ratcliffe, yes or no?
I wouldn't approve the release of classified information. Again, as I've said, my
I'm not talking about classified information, Mr. Ratcliffe. I'm talking about information that has not been approved for public release. That is information that is considered controlled, unclassified information.
The principles that would have been on that would have been individuals capable of approving that for public release.
Do you, I got 20 seconds. The deliberation as to whether or not we should launch a strike on another country, would you consider that classified information, Ms. Gabbard?
Well, the information was not classified.
I'm not talking about this. I'm just talking about deliberation from principles as to whether or not we should launch a strike on another country. Would you consider that classified information? I'm not talking about what happened this week.
There are other factors that would go into determining that classification.
Mr. Ratcliffe, the deliberation between principals in our national security apparatus about whether or not to strike another country, would you consider that to be classified information?
Pre-decisional strike deliberation should be conducted through classified channels.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Audio series za kusisimua, makala za ulimwengu, siasa za dunia katika uchambuzi wa kina, maajabu ya ulimwengu na anga, historia za mastaa na viongozi, video za kujifunza mapishi na mengine mengi sehemu moja. SNS Premium, coming soon.